Over here at Liscombe Tree Service, this is another frequently asked question that we get is whenever you're performing our tree services, what type of equipment are you guys going to be using on our property? Well, the answer to that is totally going to depend on the services that are obviously being performed. But in general, we use heavy equipment that is generally on tracks or tires. So we've got large bucket trucks, we've got skid steers to mini skid steers to backyard spider lifts. We're a very heavy equipment-based company that does our best to perform your work with minimal damage to your property by utilizing yard protection, boards, whatever we need to make sure that we do not track in and out 1,000 times and destroy your yard. There are times where there's not much that you can do. There's times that we'll speak to customers, and sometimes it's not that big of an issue. But rest assured that no matter what equipment we bring in, whether it's a chainsaw, mini skids, bucket trucks, we will protect your yard and we will make sure it is done properly every time. When is the best time to remove a tree? Well, a best time to remove a tree is really any time because you're removing the tree, so there's no health aspects involved with keeping the tree healthy and alive. So we always say that the worst time typically is going to be when the ground is very, very wet, soft because of the damage and the equipment that we're going to be bringing in. We do run a heavy equipment. We are bringing out logs. They're not pillows. It is heavy. We do our best to minimize it. But to saying that, it is best to do in the summer when the ground is obviously rock solid hard, or in the winter when it's frozen, if property damage is a concern of yours. If not, remove it anytime. Do I need to be home for the tree work to be performed? The answer to that question is absolutely not. You're free to be anywhere you want. You're free to be home. You're free to be at work. We are professionals. We do not need your assistance. If you would like to be there, we completely understand. So if you're thinking that tree work has to be done with the homeowner there, that is not valid. We love to have homeowners around. They love to watch what we do, but it's not necessary. And you can rest assured that we will take care of everything we say we're going to do, even if you're not there. Do we subcontract our work? Here at Liscombe Tree Service, we do our very best to minimally subcontract anything. If it's definitely like tree removal, tree pruning, stump grinding, planting, we do most of that in-house. Now, there are times where machines are down, where employees are down, where there are necessities and situations where we do need to bring in subcontractors. Maybe every once in a while, it might be a stump grinder guy that can come in and help us relieve some of that. Or on these larger jobs, obviously, we're going to bring in someone with more skill set if it comes to grubbing ponds out, if it comes to those things. So we do sub that, but we take care of all that in-house, and we do not worry that to the customer or our client. They don't have to worry about coordinating with them. And we do make sure that they're fully insured. We have COIs and everything else. We often get asked, when is the best time to prune your trees? The best time to prune your trees is typically in the cooler seasons when the trees are in their dormant state. So typically during between October to say May, you're pretty safe to trim some trees. You want to have that prune healed up before the summer months and the insects and everything else is really just running on all cylinders in the trees. So make sure that if you are pruning, make sure it's cool out. Make sure that you're not in the heat of the summer. If it's super necessary, there are times where you have to make an exception, but be very cautious of what you're doing when it comes to that. Do you have to grind the stump if you remove the tree? The quick answer is no, you do not have to. The biggest reason for grinding a stump is obviously if you want to get the eyesore out, take care of the job, get rid of it. You can get your yard back, plant topsoil and grass seed, and never know the tree was there. But a lot of the times we tell customers that if there is something that we need to reduce in order to make the job more affordable, the stump can always be done at a later time. It can be done, sometimes some homeowners want to do them, but that's what we will typically tell our clients is, hey, we want to do a full service, but if you would like to leave the stump, that's totally fine. Typically on a stump, if it's being left, you could expect to save probably $100 to $300-400. So it just all depends on what the customer needs, and we're happy to meet any of those. Is it cheaper to keep the wood when having a tree removed? So there's a couple ways to look at that. It depends on obviously the location of the tree. It depends on how big the wood is and what we're trying to accomplish. Are we just literally leaving it the length that it comes down off the tree in the removal, or are we cutting it up into 16-inch size blocks for like firewood to be split later? So typically for us at Liscombe Tree Service, when we didn't have the equipment to process as quickly and get the jobs completed and just cleaned up as soon as it's coming down, we would typically, yes, it would be cheaper to leave the wood, but the way that we process material now and how efficient we are with equipment, it costs more for us to leave the wood because we have more time cutting it up than just getting it out and getting it processed and out of the property. So If it depends on the size of the company, it depends on the location, the size of the job, and a lot of other factors. But typically, it could be cheaper, but it depends on the size of the company. We often get asked the question, do we top trees? The answer is absolutely not. Do not top them. It used to be a common practice, but anymore with the research and science, with the arborists and everything else, there's no topping going on anywhere. So do not allow a company to come by and top your tree or even use that terminology. There are things known as a crown reduction where you can reduce the height of it, but there's proper ways to do that to ANSI standards, making sure you're pruning to proper laterals, and that would be the only thing that you could do there. The only tree exception that we have there is people will call like a Bradford pear, which you can reduce significantly, and they do call that topping or hat racking. So whenever it comes to it, just really stay away from it and be known that the answer will always be no. A frequently asked question we get often is, what should I look for and questions should I ask when looking to hire a tree company? So when we're asked that question, what we typically say is the biggest and most important thing is, are they reputable? So number one is, are they reputable? Have you heard of them? Are they licensed? Number two. Number three, are they insured fully? Do they have general liability, work comp, and they have their vehicle insurance at a minimum? And are the coverages that are covered, are they able to cover your property values? Make sure of that. Frequently asked question that we get is, do you guys offer emergency tree services? And how does that work when we're in need? So when it comes to emergency tree services, obviously emergency lies when a job is not scheduled to be done and it needs to be done immediately. What would that mean? So say for instance that a tree fell and it is through your house, it's penetrated the roof, deciding there's potential of more damage from the water, the winds, the weather that's coming or that caused it. So typically when that happens, if we were to get a call, the number one thing that you'll have to do is reach out to your insurance company. Once you reach out to your insurance company, or you can reach out to us, we're happy to set that up for you. We do perform work at any time of the night or day as needed, and the prices associated with those services would be solely based on what the job the task is, what the location is, what equipment is needed, the manpower. So typically, whenever, just like anything, priority does cost money, right? It costs more than standard time. So when it comes to emergency tree services or emergency contractor work in general, you typically should expect a 2 to 3 times our normal service rate to be able to get out there to service you at an instant. We don't always charge that. It depends on a basis, but do not be alarmed and don't think that someone's price gouging you to get out of their bed at 3 a.m. and service you and get things out of your house and mitigate tens of thousands of dollars more of damage. So there you go, and hope you have a good day. A very common, frequently asked question we get is, what are our legalities and what can we do about trimming our neighbor's trees off the property line that is overhanging or causing issues with our own home? So technically, that you can say that you own the airspace above your house. How we always do it, in the safest, most logical way I've ever come about it, is trim it right to the property line, but keep it on yours. If you and your neighbor are cordial, obviously we can do whatever. We can trim it back, keep it over. But if you and your neighbor are not cool, typically it does not work out well. And we say, let's access it from their yard, the client's yard if possible. And if the other, the tree owner's yard, the neighbor, does not give us access, we have to be very smart and not do anything illegal like trespass to do that. So we do have aerial lifts that can approach property lines in buckets and not have to access and climb up the tree from the neighboring property. And when it comes to that, technically you're legally allowed to trim anything back over your property line. If it hangs over there, it's encroaching your property, you can legally trim that back. Now you cannot trim it and then throw the debris back in your neighbor's yard or send them a bill, but anything overhanging your property or trespassing, we'll say, onto your property, you can legally remove or prune at your liking. If you have any other questions, please let us know. Hey everybody, it's Todd over at Liscombe Tree Service. Hey, just wanted to go over some frequently asked questions that we get. One of the most important and common ones is definitely, are you guys fully insured, or what does that mean exactly? So when it comes to a company being fully insured, there's typically 3 things you should be looking for. And tree services especially, these 3 typical insurances are, number 1, general liability, number 2, workers' compensation, and number 3, their auto policies for their vehicles and equipment. So we'll break them down here. So for the general liability, what that means is, what the general liability covers pretty much like all the structures, your property, everything else. The general liability of like the liability the company's putting onto your property. So if, you know, in our situation as a tree service, if we were to cut it, we were to hit a house, damage the siding, damage, you know, driveways or whatever else, that would cover that. So when it comes to that, make sure that the coverage that the company you're hiring has enough coverage to pay for the property that you have. They cannot have a $100,000 policy and your house is worth 900 grand. They're grossly underinsured and they're not going to be able to cover anything if it were to happen. So make sure that on general liability. When it comes to workers' compensation, what that is for is the employees that are on the job site. So typically there's some exemptions with like owner operators and things like that, but typically anybody that have contractors that has employees, 1099s don't work how they say they do. They have to have workers' compensation on each employee, right? So you'll see their policy and you'll definitely, you'll know what kind of occurrence per occurrence they have. If somebody were to get hurt, it would cover that. Then when it comes to like automobile, if their truck were to come out of gear, roll down and hit a car, hit a house or something like that, that would go under your automobile. When it comes to all these insurance, the number one thing to do not just trust the contractor to hand you a piece of paper that looks legitimate and you have no clue how to read. Call the number on there and verify their insurance. Make sure that they are matching what they're saying that they have, because a lot of people will not be valid and they'll be dishonest about them having work comp and get you to sign the deal. Another thing you should do is, if you're skeptical about someone, is you should call that insurance company and you can get listed as an additional insured. So that means it kind of like locks you into their policy so they can't like run off and you know, ghost out. Like it's a legit policy and you're locked in if something were to ever happen. Super cheap. Any commercial insurance should be able to do it in 2 seconds. And if your commercial broker cannot send additional insured or COIs out within, you know, a couple hours, then you should find somebody else. So that's what I would say when it comes to insurance and the contracting tree world. And if you guys got any other questions, feel free to reach out. A frequently asked question we get is, why do you guys ask for deposits? The reason that we ask for deposits is, number one, it keeps a little skin in the game. Typically, a lot of people say if a company asks for deposits, then who are they? Well, they're actually a legit, trustworthy, probably organized company that wants to make sure that their workload is locked in and everybody's good. Typically, when we all put money out there, we put a little skin in the game. We're very loyal to each other, and that's the way it should be. So for us at Liscombe Tree Service, for years, we found it to work the best way, and I urge you to maybe try this with it. And if a customer isn't really willing to give you a little bit of skin up front after you've invested so much time into advertising, getting them taking the call, fielding it, looking at their job, then you should maybe question a little bit too. Remember, every customer isn't for you. So for us, once again, 20% deposit is due upon completion and in order to schedule the work. We will not lock you in on a schedule until we receive that 20% to know that we're all serious about this. Once we do the work and complete it, it's invoiced and everyone's happy. We then obviously, generally, it's cash upon completion or check, whatever, payment upon completion. We will then collect the remaining 80% at the time the job's done and everyone's happy. So that's the way we do it here. That's the way I believe everyone should do it, and it works really well. Have a good day. A frequently asked question we get here is, what types of payments do you guys offer or accept? So when it comes to payments, we accept cash, we accept check, we accept all major credit cards, and we do offer financing. Whatever you'd like to do, just let our office know and we can adjust accordingly to what you need to do, and we will get everything sent over to you in a timely manner and get you taken care of. A frequently asked question that we get is, do you guys offer discounts? At this time, we really don't offer any discounts. A few times a year, we may run a few specials, and if we do, we typically mail those out in a direct mail campaign or run online ads. So if you're ever looking for it, just give us a call and see if there's anything that we're currently running, and we'd be happy to let you know.